is Lansley. I am 7 years old.
As a parent, it's difficult to try and convince those people as to, listen, this is a normal child.
I would love to become a teacher.
They have got just as much aspiration as anybody else.
To help the other kids.
And they ran all sorts of tests, whatever they could think of, and still there was no diagnosis for her.
I think it's vital to be diagnosed very early. Unfortunately, I didn't have that privilege.
I took her to another doctor who suggested that she must be operated. My 2 months old will be operated on the head, and then I decided not to go.
I was getting no answers that were satisfactory at the time, and I was getting emotional.
It was really a trauma, if I think about it.
I don't wish any parent to go through this. Rather, they would know earlier than later.
We, as an organisation, are rare in the work that we are doing.
We're not a patient support organisation, we are a patient finding organisation.
Early 2020, just months before the world was hurled into a pandemic, a motley crew of filmmakers, clinicians, communicators, patient advocates, and activists from across the globe embarked on a rare quest. An impossible mission to find the missing, the undiagnosed, the unidentified, and to connect them to pathways of care.
I think what makes Tin Soldiers different is that in many ways it's an organisation that is led strategically and otherwise by communicators and storytellers and people who understand how to effectively drive communications with a human story at the centre of it to multiple audiences on multiple platforms.
At the core of the Tin Soldiers mission is a global search for one of the most rare musculoskeletal conditions on the planet.
What's the best thing you think is going to be about being 7 years old?
Being older than other kids.
Essentially, FOP is a catastrophic sabotage of the body's skeletal system.
You know, the hardest thing, I think, is when she lost elbow movement in both arms.
It steals childhood, the mobility that we all know and love and come to remember in our own childhood.
Oh, you can close that now.
It steals that from these children.
Eles podem brincar em outro lugar, mas eu não posso. Eles podem correr atrás de pipa, eu não posso.
Foi bem comovente, porque eu não tinha ideia, né?
Every 44 hours, somewhere in the world, a mother gives birth to a child with fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, or FOP.
She had funny-looking toes. So immediately I thought, oh, there's something not right. So they took her away, brought her back and said, it's something genetic that's made her toes like that.
FOP is a progressive genetic condition that causes muscles, ligaments, and tendons to turn to bone.
People who have FOP eventually form a second skeleton.
And at the end, they are frozen in one position.
É difícil aceitar. Você não aceita que é minha primeira filha.
With an incidence rate of approximately 1 in a million, it is expected that around 8,000 people are living with FOP globally. Only about 800 are diagnosed and known to the international FOP community.
The raw fact is that we have the majority of people with FOP that are missing, the majority on the globe.
So that's a lot of missing people. And our job really is to drive a program that helps find them.
Then can they go backwards or forwards? No. Okay. And your wrists?
I come to the Tin Soldiers team with the perspective of an FOP mom, and I know personally what it felt like to not know what my child suffered from and not have answers. And then even when I found the diagnosis, I needed to be educated and get connected to people that understood my situation.
I am brave. I am 1 in a million.
And I'm proud to be 1 in 1 million.
Someone like me is born every 44 hours.
Our strategy is very focused in that it's very much driven by communication, and that is communication with various different target audiences. Number 1 being healthcare professionals and healthcare practitioners, and number 2 being the public. And it's educating those markets as well as creating awareness in those markets.
So you always want to see that there's a normal T here. And if it goes like this, then you know there's a problem.
Key is healthcare practitioners, because they are your first line of defense, whether they are pediatricians or GPs, or in more underserved communities, nurses. So we target that audience in various ways depending on what level they're at. So medical congresses are a really big, important part of what we do. We've also created an educational master series, a CME master series that has been delivered through webinars and then adapted for use in various countries.
From the very first day that my colleagues and I began the FOP journey many years ago, caring has been part of the cure.
We decided to contact the Ministry of Health of our country because they have a program of continuing education for all the physicians around the whole country.
FOP expert Dr. Carmen De Cunto and FOP Argentina have partnered with Tin Soldiers to deliver a unique CME webinar series.
Pero también puede ocurrir que uno pueda hacer diagnósticos diferenciales y estas.
And I think this is the first step to make awareness of FOP in my country.
Initially, the program was quite South African focused, but intentionally so. You know, the key project team are based in South Africa. It's a market we understand and know really, really well, have all of us having backgrounds in that kind of space. So we were very much about testing and learning in the South African market.
Sometimes when we don't understand something, we give it a name, right? We say, this person must have bad spirits in their family, or, you know, they must be cursed, or, you know, all those things. The one thing that we need to refer people with FOP to is the doctors.
And very quickly, the work we were doing piqued other people's interest.
When I finally understood what Tin Soldiers were doing, it was like, hey.
So, for example, the FOP patient support organizations, we started talking to them about what we were doing and how they could adapt it and apply it in their own markets.
I appreciate the mission you do. It's absolutely fantastic.
It's really inspiring with how far Tin Soldiers have come.
In Russia, the National Patient Organization has kicked off the partnership by translating and adapting the Tin Soldiers Master Series in specialized dentistry.
It was very, very helpful tool for us because it's the one of hardest part of living with FOP.
Celebramos os 16 anos da descoberta da causa genética da FOP e hoje anunciamos essa vitória para as famílias.
The First Lady of Brazil embraced Tin Soldiers as a mission to find all the missing patients.
In a global first, First Lady Michelle Bolsonaro has joined forces with FOP expert and Tin Soldiers board member Dr. Patricia Delay to drive policy changes in her country.
So the idea is to create a protocol. When the child is born, 97% of people with FOP are born with the malformed toes. I just want people to look at the toes.
Displasia ossificante progressiva FOP.
In April 2022, the Brazilian Ministry of Health adopted a neonatal screening protocol for FOP.
Brazil is going to be the pioneer to create a law to find people with a rare disease, and this has no cost zero.
In another pioneering move, Tin Soldiers has worked with the Mandic medical schools to introduce FOP to their undergraduate and postgraduate courses.
Answers are on the rare diseases, not on the common ones. So they embraced FOP and also Tin Soldiers. And it's the first time in Latin America, and if not in the whole world, that a medical institution does that.
There will always be new doctors. Today, tomorrow, in 10 years.
Marie Folberg, who heads up the national FOP organization in Sweden, has partnered with Tin Soldiers and adapted content to drive education and awareness in the Nordics.
People don't know about FOP, so we have to raise awareness constantly and always work with the basics.
Tin Soldiers always leaves a footprint wherever we go, and that footprint hopefully will continue to grow. It's like building an army of foot soldiers with eyes looking for people with FOP and other rare conditions.
We're about to take off to Limpopo, close to the Zimbabwe border.
When you're going on the ground to those really first line of defense people, mostly in underserved communities, then it's about getting boots on the ground.
And the last thing you do with the spine is to ask the child to bend over and touch their toes.
Every time we educate, every time we go to a congress, every single thing we do, we want to build that army of eyes. When we first started this work in FOP, we were lucky in that we knew that anywhere we might find someone who needs a diagnosis, we could connect into the International Clinical Council for FOP, or the ICC.
Put like a 4x4 gauze into the mouth through that access area.
He was able to get in and do a relatively atraumatic extraction.
One more question.
There is a possibility of bone remodeling.
We soon realized that as much as we were looking for people with FOP, we were looking for the doctors. We were looking for the clinicians who cared enough to take on these rare patients. So as we're looking for people, we're also building this growing network of clinicians, anchors, leading lights around the world, who then become additions to this army of eyes.
Since 2020, Tin Soldiers has educated over 1,000 healthcare professionals in 62 countries across 6 continents.
The cornerstone of Tin Soldiers was always built on caring for those with FOP. And very quickly and early on, it became very obvious that we were going to find in the kind of work that we're doing, in the education and on the ground work that we're doing in clinics and hospitals, is that we're also going to be asked about people that don't have FOP, other musculoskeletal conditions.
And I think it became a bit of a no-brainer for us to go, while we're looking, why not just bring along the people that we find that have other musculoskeletal conditions?
Is that one painful?
We already tapped into the same network of people who they would need to diagnose them and put them on a pathway to care.
1 in 50,000, that is rare, but it's certainly something a lot of doctors know about. It can't move as far.
Our mandate and our funding comes to look for people with an ultra-rare condition, but our mission is to not leave anyone behind, which is why we also make sure we educate about broader musculoskeletal. When those cases come up, we work very hard to make sure they're connected to pathways of care.
Hou jy van dokters?
Ja.
En hoekom wil jy dokter word? Wat wil jy doen?
'n Ambulans ry.
Okay.
En siek mense help.
En siek mense help. Dit is baie.
From 4 years of not knowing to 4 days, it just happened. We had our diagnosis.
Dit voel vir my te oppervlakkig, weet jy? Want hierdie goed is alles subkutaan en hierdie voel vir my intradermaal, soos ons sou sê.
little did I think we realize in the very beginning that would then blossom into this garden of different conditions with an expanded network of more doctors that could diagnose people with these other conditions. And so it's actually broadened our physician network.
So I'm looking from the front here to see if I can see any asymmetry. So we're looking if the hands are the same, the hips are the same, the legs are the same, and then you're looking specifically at the toes while he's standing as well.
When we're on the ground doing that work, it's really important for us that we impart and upskill both the local healthcare practitioner network as well as community workers. So that going into the future, we can equip them with the resources, we can equip them with video content, we can equip them with posters and flyers and medical handbooks and all sorts of things that means they can continue doing the work where they are.
Central to the Tin Soldiers' sustainability strategy is linking healthcare workers to a network of musculoskeletal experts who can assist with diagnosis and advice.
Years ago,
We have partnered very powerfully with the Global Pediatric MSK Task Force, and they are connected with 450 musculoskeletal experts, clinicians around the world. So we pretty much know if we have a ping in Turkey and it's not FOP, if it is FOP, we've got the ICC. If it's not FOP, but it's something else musculoskeletal, we can connect that patient, the doctors they might be seeing, into this global network of expertise. It's not possible to have a sustainable program without partnerships. So we've worked very hard to develop partnerships in different ways.
What happens is once we start partnering with different organizations, so people, maybe other rare organizations, patient support organizations, other organizations who are doing work in the rare community, you can see how it automatically starts to expand our reach.
So, for example, faith-based organizations, we're beginning to move into that space, but also organizations like Flying for Life and Mercy Air that do outreaches into some of the world's most rural, underserved communities.
So as a very simple example, we work with Njani Clinics quite extensively. They have over 100 nurse-owned and operated clinics, and those clinics are part of our network. So that helps us extend our message into those 100 people and their communities. So it gives us that reach that we would never have gotten on our own as an organization. So it's very important that we think about organizations that are like-minded, trying to do similar work, are already doing similar work in similar communities, and that's really how we extend our reach.
We need partners in government, we need partners in networks, we need partners in corporate.
It's clear she's got a congenital problem, a genetic problem, but she certainly needs to get to Joburg to see the special doctors there.
Another important thing to understand about everything that we do at Tin Soldiers is we have a vision or an ambition. We come up with a strategy, we then move on to a plan and execution, and then we have outcomes that are measurable and reportable. So that is how we operate as an organization, but that is also how we approach every single project we do. And things that don't work so well, we learn fast and we build on what does work well. Unfortunately, pretty much everything we've done has worked.
As a program, the Tin Soldiers Global FOP Patient Search boasts impressive early outcomes. The education of over 1,000 healthcare practitioners, the introduction of neonatal screening in Brazil, the creation of an expansive library of content, media interests and front-page stories, roll out to international territories, and the establishment of powerful, sustainable partnerships. The ultimate goal, however, is to find people.
And little by little, we started finding those people. We started finding the needles in haystacks. So, including the first multi-generational family known on the African continent.
Ek voel niks van die been nog ergens op sy lyf nie. Maar die duime en die twinkies Jy weet, ek dink mense het 'n genetiese toets nodig om te sê dis FOP nie. Ja.
Kitty's just born in India. One of a set of twins just born in Mossel Bay. We're finding them.
In its short time in operation, Tin Soldiers has helped identify, diagnose, and connect to pathways of care 23 people with FOP and several children with other musculoskeletal conditions.
For an ultra-rare condition that affects 1 in 1 million people, and we've been able to find that amount of patients in 2 years, that's incredible. And as I say, if it had been one person's life who we changed, I would have been so happy and so proud.
For that person, I know what that feels like as a mother. That moment that I'm no longer wondering what my child has. And at that moment, that's the greatest reward I get from working on Tin Soldiers.
So it's work that I'm really passionate about. I love doing it. And yeah, it's just the more patients we can find, the better. There's so many out there, so many to find, and we just can't wait to find them all.
It is just an absolute privilege to be doing this work, and also just doing this work with such incredible humans. Everyone working in this world, from these guys behind the camera to this person sitting in front of me to the patient organizations and the moms and the clinicians globally. Just amazing. And it just shows me personally, and I think the world, what is possible when we as humans actually just put our egos aside and get together and have a common purpose of care.